Alrighty, and we are live. How's it going, Mets and overall baseball fans? Thank you guys all so much for chiming in for the latest post-game show here on WardyNYM. I appreciate everyone's patience that are waiting for the live show. And again, appreciate everyone for chiming in the live show. Really does mean a lot. And today we're going to be breaking down the nitty and gritty. All you need to know about the latest game for the Metropolitans this spring as they once again falter, this time 5-2 to the Houston Astros. Astros had a AAA lineup out there today, not even, and the Mets just could not get the runs going. That has been a story for them for a good portion of spring, regardless on if they've had their veteran hitters in there or not. Just the offense just hasn't been there consistently. And again, that's going to happen. I'd much rather it happen during spring. But thankfully, the show today, what we're drawing our eyes, we're Kodai Senga, and that's exactly why we're still doing a post-game show today when the Mets had pretty much an anemic offense in a lot of ways in this loss to the Astros. But when Kodai Senga's on the bump, we have to talk about him, win or lose here in spring. And again, guys, if you enjoy consistent Mets content covering all the nit and gritty each post game, we're going to be covering over 100 Mets games this year, just like we did last year with the #1 post game show on YouTube for a reason. So make sure to smash that like and subscribe on if you're new or a recurring viewer. Really does mean a lot. But not much more that needs to be said here besides the fact that, yeah, the Mets offensively weren't sharp today. There were some standouts that we'll get into, and Kodai Senga, in which I want to break down more on his arsenal. But before I do that, I do want to let you guys know some health updates for the New York Mets, because Brandon Nimmo is the first one that, for those that aren't aware, Nimmo has been, of course, out since he injured himself on St. Patrick's Day, jamming what looked like his knee and ankle. It was called a sprain, and he would be viewed week to week. He's already been working out, doing sprints, before games, and he very well could already be back in the Mets lineup as soon as this weekend, which, of course, is still a week before opening day. So that's great news. Nimmo already looks ahead of schedule. So for all of us that thought the worst initially when we saw Nimmo go down shortly after Diaz's injury in the WBC, thankfully, Brandon is already looking better than what he initially was, and it looks like it won't be long before we see him back in the Mets lineup. Again, I have no issue if the Mets just want to keep him out until opening day, but it looks like that there is a stronger possibility now that we're going to see him before that. So again, shout out Ed, great member in the live show. Shout out everyone else watching live or on replay. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. What was your biggest takeaway from today's loss? And overall, where the Mets stand now, as we're just over a week away, or right around a week away, rather, from opening day in Miami against the Marlins. But the other health update to put you guys onto is that, yes, Carlos Carrasco will not be making his scheduled minor league start tomorrow. We saw Max Scherzer throughout spring as well do a minor league start too, just to get more action and focus on specific pitches. They've been doing that with a couple stars. Carrasco was expected to pitch tomorrow, a minor league matchup against the Braves minor league roster, while the Braves are facing the Mets tomorrow in spring. And Vasil, who is a pitching prospect for the Mets, will be making his spring debut on the bump. But Cookie will not be doing that now because of quote unquote elbow maintenance that he does periodically. It's interesting. Carrasco will skip this outing and pitch 5 days later, Tuesday, also a minor league game. So he's skipping this next start because of elbow maintenance. And this is something that he's done with in the past with the Mets, apparently. So I'm not awfully concerned by it, but it kind of just shows you that the Mets are going to be as cautious as they possibly can all spring. Another factor that goes into that is Kodai Senga today, who looked, again, very sharp on the mound today, was very happy with his outing. Yes, he had 2 earned runs. It was after he exited, though, in this matchup. We'll get into that shortly. Senga didn't throw his ghost fork at all. He didn't throw it the last time he was on the bump. He's only thrown it a handful of times this spring. And a factor into that is not only because, it's nice to kind of wait for one of your best, put out pitches, if you will, to start utilizing it for when the season begins to throw off hitters. But he's also doing that because, according to the Mets, it is because they're still being cautious with his finger tendonitis that he was diagnosed with a week ago. And of course, when I was in Port St. Lucie, that I shared with you guys about my trip and that experience, how fun that was. He was slated to pitch when I was there, the first day that I was there, actually, and he got skipped his start because of the tendonitis to the base of, I want to say, his index finger. So no less, Kodai Senga, even though that he didn't pitch a ghost fork today, was still very sharp and working on those other pitches in his arsenal, newer pitches in his arsenal, and the cutter and with the sweeping slider, in which they had plenty swing and miss today. But One final update to give for you guys before we just break down the nitty and gritty about this game. Not that there was a lot going on here, because obviously there wasn't, but I want to stay true to, if I commit to covering this Mets game, 9 out of 10 times I'm going to make sure that I'm covering the game, even in spring, even if they lose, regardless on how much viewership or lack thereof we get. I'm just trying to stay consistent for you guys here, as always. But the big news that we found out earlier today was that, yes, Francisco Alvarez has already been sent down to AAA. Now, in case you're wondering why exactly this was, I thought Alvarez was going to crack this Mets roster. No, he wasn't going to, and that became more abundantly clear through initial reports from Andy Martino of SNY throughout the offseason, then Buck Showalter himself. Buck went on further to say that, he hopes that Alvarez stays the whole year in AAA, because that means that our catchers and Nido and Narvaez are performing so well that it isn't warranted of doing potentially a desperation call up, and that Alvarez, even if he's raking, just rather him get further experience at AAA. I fully expect Alvarez to be up with the Mets this year. It's just not going to start the year. The bat to ball skills was not there in spring. He was in a limited role. We know that. Even with the WBC going on with Narvaez, Alvarez wasn't playing every day still, which was a little surprising. Had some solid hits here or there, even roped a nice deep single to right center when I was in Port St. Lucie less than a week ago now. But Alvarez is someone that's still coming back from his ankle surgery that he had right after the conclusion of the 2022 season. So that was a slow buildup for him entering spring as is. So Alvarez, while I love him, the 21-year-old stud prospect, best catching prospect in the bigs, arguably the best prospect in general in baseball right now. He'll be starting the year in AAA, and we should fully expect to see him probably at some point this year. Just a matter of when, to see how he develops. And there's one praise they certainly got. It wasn't necessarily the bat to ball skills, as he looks like he's pressing quite a bit, trying to impress. So when you try to impress, that can easily lead to a swing and miss when you're a home run hitter, the way that Alvarez surely is and is expected to be in his major league career. But he did get a lot of praise defensively that I was seeing through multiple quotes. So, and that's great to see. Alvarez has been working tirelessly on his defense, worked all offseason, not only on his defense, but on, just learning more about the English language, being able to have proper dialect with the pitchers to make sure that there isn't that language barrier in the way, which I think as a catcher, when you're interacting with pitchers on a day-to-day basis and you need to as your job, I think that's great. So I could give kudos to Alvarez for that. But defensively, working on his framework, working on his overall blocking skills, he has the cannon of the arm, so that's not an issue trying to drill out guys from, home to second or first, even for that matter, trying to pick him off. But Alvarez, again, I'm excited for him this year. I'll be watching plenty of AAA games with him in it, and that's all that needs to be said on that front. Francisco Alvarez will not be starting the year with the Mets. It'll be Narvaez and Nido. And Nido, who's looked really, really, really sharp this spring, over 1,000 OPS. I know it means little in spring, but got to give credit where credit's due. Another solid day at the plate for him hitting Oppo. But let's get in this ball game now. Enough of me talking about all these updates. I know they're important. You could even argue that they're more important than the game today itself. But Kodai Senga, again, working on that cutter and the sweeping slider. A lot to like there, even though he wasn't throwing his patent pending ghost fork, if you will. In the first inning, Kodai Senga had himself a 1-2-3 inning, including a strikeout. In the second inning, because the Mets did nothing in the first, and you would see that trend. The Mets had a total of 9 hits today to the Astros 6, but were outscored 5-2 because, of course, they were. They had some bad luck, actually, too. Mets had an expected batting average today of 276 if you look through Baseball Savant. So we get to the second inning with 2 outs. Dearden for the Astros rips a double, the first base hit of the day, even though it was a double, I should say, for the Astros. Kessinger with a strikeout would end it. And I will give note, Kodai Senga's first strikeout, which caught the guy looking in the first in that 1-2-3 inning, was a 99-mile-per-hour heater right down the pipe. So the velo was there early and often with Senga. So then as we advance to the third inning, Machado, not Manny Machado, but the Astros Machado, gets a walk. Bannon with a single, but Kodai would escape that jam unscathed with 2 on and 2 out. Then we get to the bottom of the third. Omar Narvaez, with his first of 2 base hits today, rips a single, and just like that, the Mets have a guy on board, but they can't do anything with it. Again, story of the day, Mets offensively. If you saw the starting lineup prior to, the defensive replacements later in the game, you'd be like, all right, come on, why aren't they hitting at all here? They just, again, that's kind of been their story, their spring. I feel like they're only hitting for the few games that I'm not covering them. It's mainly on the weekends, right? I don't know what it is, but you had Escobar leading off today, Marte, Lindor, Vogelback, Canna, Ruff, who was rough to say the least, Tommy Pham, Luis Gourmet, and Omar Narvaez was your starting lineup today. And yeah, still nothing. I really didn't get anything going. It's the Mets when they're doing these rallies are too little too late when a lot of their starters are pulled out of the game. And then you have the young studs trying to step up or, guys competing for spots that have more of an urgency than the vets, if you will, which again is understandable. But Narvaez gets a base knock there in the third. That'll do her. And also, I also have this question too. I don't for people on replay. Let me know in the comments below. I've seen some people get like unbelievably butthurt in my comments on the channel, which I find hilarious, about me using the term base knock. I'm not trying to get on a tangent here. I just want to ask you guys in the live chat for people on replay. Does that bother you? Like I've heard that term used so many times from people in the baseball world and industry. So I don't know what makes people think that I came up with it myself. But I mean, it really got some people's, what's in a twist. Like it honestly has shocked me how much it has bothered a very select few that are frequent commenters on the channel. I mean, but yeah, let me know your thoughts about that. Like, I was blown away. I mean, some people were getting emotional about it, but hey, to each their own, I guess, right? Ed, thank you so much for the donation. I'll address that shortly, but I just want to throw that out there because I'm like, what is going on here? I mean, people are just getting upset about anything and everything nowadays. Like, my goodness gracious. So then let's get here to the fourth inning. Senga with a 1-2-3 inning. Again, very sharp there for Kodai. In the fifth, that's where he had his biggest struggle today, which led to his departure in this ball game. Senga issued 2 walks, no outs to start the fifth inning. Deepest he's pitched so far in spring. He will be taken out of the game. Jimmy Yacobonis comes in with 2 on, no out. Yacobonis, the guy with another sweeping slider himself. 2 on, no out. He's pitched 6 scoreless innings so far in spring, trying to compete for a bullpen shot, which is a little bit of uphill battle with the type of depth the Mets have and guys that stood out today, like the Tommy Hunters and Jeff Brigham, a little lesser extent, but the John Curtises, the et cetera. Like, there's plenty of guys competing for bullpen spots and are worthy of that. But Jimmy, solid spring up until today, unfortunately. And I feel bad for him because, this was the type of outing where it wouldn't surprise me if this was kind of the deal breaker or close to the deal breaker, which would take him out of contention for competing for said bullpen because he walks in a run and gives up a bases clearing double. Jimmy Yacobonis' final line today is 1 inning pitched, 1 hit, 2 earned runs, 2 walks, 2 strikeouts. The first time they surrendered a run here in spring. So he allows 4 runs total, 2 earned, 2 unearned there in the fifth inning. Those other 2 were charged to Kodai. And that's the one thing that'll always bother me about baseball when it comes to taking out a pitcher and then a reliever comes in. There's always something about inherited runners on that rubs me the wrong way personally. Like, the arguments really are you have a situation where a guy says gets pulled from the game too early where you feel confident that he could get out of the jam, especially if it's, base 2 on, no out is more understandable, especially when you're doing load management still with Kodai, trying to stretch him out properly, not rushing him. But especially in season, you see scenarios where it's like guys with 2 outs just need 1 more out and they're not rattled or anything. It's only like 1 or 2 on, and then a reliever comes in and he gives up a couple base hits or base knocks, if you will. And just like that, that run is charging him. Like, I feel bad for those instances when you can tell the pitchers clearly aren't rattled, and you could argue it's a managerial mistake, with utilizing the pen right or wrongfully in that situation. So just more food for thought for you. It's something that definitely bothers me. But for Senga's case, given the fact that he did walk the first 2 batters he saw, there is a solid chance that he would have at least at minimum allowed 1 run there in that inning, if not more than 2 possibly. So no less, Jimmy Yacobonis, not a great line today, but we'll see if he gets how many more appearances he gets from now until spring training reaches its conclusion. Kodai Senga on the day, 4 innings, 2 hits, 2 earned runs, 3 walks, 3 strikeouts on 58 pitches. And I want to briefly go over Kodai Senga's arsenal with you guys, if that's okay. Because again, he is the man of the hour. He is the story of the show. That's why for any and all of you guys that are watching the live show right now, live or on replay, the main reason is probably more than likely because of Kodai Senga. I mean, who wants to go out of their way to watch a schmuck like me break down a Mets ball game in which they lost an anemic offense late in spring when we all want the regular season to start? So for all you guys, I appreciate it. But Kodai today, let's get into his arsenal, shall we? 62% of his arsenal today was with the 4-seam fastball. He topped out at 99 miles per hour and averaging 95 on the heater. The sweeper, his sweeping slider, rather, he threw 22% of the time today. And again, new pitch for him in his arsenal. 84 miles per hour is where he topped out. 81 was the minimum and averaged around 82. The cutter, 14% of his arsenal, 93 miles per hour. on the max, and then the average was 91, and the fork ball, in which he only threw once today. I mean, is this? I don't even know. Are they saying that this was the ghost fork? I'm really not sure because he was not expected. If it was only one pitch, I definitely don't recall seeing it. Anyways, it was around 80 miles per hour. So that's the arsenal there for Kodai Senga today. Again, mixing up his pitches, something that we're going to see more of. We'll probably pitch at least one more time, and then he'll be set to, I'd imagine, being the number 2 starter to start the year, because the Bleav now is that Max Scherzer will be the opening day starter in Miami, and Justin Verlander will be the opening day starter, home opener rather, in Queens on April 6th, which would have Verlander slated, correct me if I'm wrong, as the number 3 starter in the rotation. So we're looking at Scherzer number 1, Senga number 2, Verlander number 3, Cookie number 4 most likely, and number 5 David Pearson or McGill. And Pearson right now, I'd imagine, is the favorite in that spot, unless they get creative and want them both to be incorporated in that 5 spot. So just, again, more things to add there for you guys in case you're unaware. And again, appreciate everyone shouting to make sure to continue smashing those buttons. Really does mean a lot, everybody. If you enjoy consistent Mets content, like I said, this is a place to be. No matter the time of year, no matter if we're having 1,000, 2,000 viewers in here in the live concurrent show or none at all. I mean, we're always going to be covering this Mets team all year round. It's going to be a blast to cover them. What is hopefully going to be a great 2023 Metropolitan season. So now we get to the bottom of the 5th inning. Luis Gourmet and Omar Narvaez have something in common here. They hit back-to-back opposite field singles. Afterwards, Eduardo Escobar, batting from the right side, rips an RBI double just fair right by the third base, going down the third baseline, get into the corner to drive in the Mets' first run of the day. Eddie, who looked absolutely foolish in his previous at-bat, struck out on 3 pitches, got down to his knee. Makes up for it, though, with a nice RBI there. Again, Escobar doesn't even know for certain if he's going to be the Mets opening day starter because of how much Brett Beatty has been raved about this spring during Escobar's absence in the WBC. But more than anything, I mean, the Mets coaching staff is advocating, making it clear that Beatty is an MLB caliber third baseman and defensively. And this is something that I actually plan to discuss probably in a separate video in the next day or so. So keep an eye out for that. But a lot of praise for Beatty and Escobar, who looked a lot more confident about his role heading into camp. Now with a big question mark, just obviously, hoping to be on the roster and getting playing time wherever he's utilized. Eddie's just such a great personality that, whatever, I just hope that he's, content with whatever ends up happening, because just such a good, great guy. I can't say enough good things about Eddie. I just personally love you, Eddie, but I don't want you to be my starting third baseman right now. That's just how it is. You haven't proved it to me. I mean, in comparison to a guy that is supposed to be the future of the Mets at that position. And it's crazy that we're even saying this after thinking that Carlos Correa would be in that spot for the next decade. So it's bizarre how much we can switch up on things, but hence the off season and now spring training, right? Anyways, we get to the 6th inning for the Mets here, and TJ McFarland comes in, and TJ McFarland, who's had an up and down spring, albeit, does come in and pitches an effective inning there. 1 inning pitch of 0 runs, 0 walks, 0 hit ball with 1 strikeout. The only reason why I didn't have him in the top 5 is just because I couldn't find room for him, because as we got then after we get to the bottom of the 7th, where with 2 outs, Gourmet with a single and Nito with an opposite field single, his first and 2 hits on the day. We then get to the 8th inning. Tommy Hunter in the 7th and 8th inning, I should say, pitched scoreless innings. That's why he's in my top 5 today. Tommy Hunter with 2 innings pitched of 1 hit ball, 0 earned runs, 0 walks, 2 strikeouts. Hunter has now pitched between, I want to say it's 8 or 9 scoreless innings this spring. Hunter, who looked really sharp when called upon for the Mets in the bullpen last year, looks like that he, as of now, is probably cracking this Mets bullpen. I mean, deservedly so. I would say it's going to be him and John Curtis are those 2 guys. And if there's room for one more, then that's where we have more of the discussion on the Brighams, the Yacobonuses, etc. of the world, right? Montez Diaca really impressed me, but got injured, and he'll probably start the year in AAA. Will be called up to the Mets at some point. Sam Coonrod, same thing, really impressed him in spring, but now dealing with injury. Brooks Raley will be in there, of course. But yeah, Tommy, a very, very sharp sprain for him. Another great personality, too. So I hope for his sake that he does crack this bullpen because so far he has deserved it. Hasn't given the Mets a reason to think or view otherwise, right? So, anyways, we get now to the eighth inning with 2 outs. Daniel Vogelback rips his first single of the day, and he buys himself a, pardon my French, fucking hit. And the reason why I say that is prior to that, his previous at bat, his third at bat of the day, hustling down first, grounds out. You hear him mic'd up as day. And he's like, I can't buy an effing hit. And this time he did buy one. So shout out to you, Vogie. I'm glad he got one before the game ended. Now we get to the bomb. Was it the bomb of the eighth? Or I have my notes run. I see 2 eights. Oh, yes. No, that was was that? I'm getting confused. I just know that in the eighth, I think in the eighth, yeah. Is it the eighth? Pardon me, maybe it was the ninth. I'm being an idiot right now, per usual. DJ Stewart, yeah, it was in the top of the ninth. There we go. DJ Stewart had an error trying to get a catch that was, again, shallow. There in right field, was hustling, couldn't get there in time. That allowed a run to come in. But because it was an error, it's not charged to Brigham there, who comes in to the ninth. So Jeff Brigham, I'm sorry, he was charged. So I wonder, that's weird. Was maybe DJ Stewart wasn't charged with an error there? I could have been wrong. He was hustling, but maybe it was too shallow where they gave him the benefit of the doubt. Brigham was charged with a run there. 2 hits, 1 earned run, and 2 strikeouts there in the top of the ninth. Okay. Then we get to the bottom of the ninth. Aruz, who's been coming in the ninth as a pinch hitter, minor leaguer for the Mets, has actually done pretty well in the past couple times he's been doing this. Gets a walk. Then Jose Peraza rips a base single. Tomas Nido rips his second base single of the day. I want to say it was Oppo again, too. And then Brett Beatty coming in, again, bases juiced. Couldn't drive it running with a hit, but does with an RBI walk. And afterwards, Danny Mendick goes down, and whoever the last batter was for the Mets goes down. So the Mets lose by a final score of 5-2 here. Again, offensively, not much to be happy about, or, not much to be desired on that front. But what I will say is that Kodai Senga once again looked very solid, and that's great to see. He will be slated at least one more spring start, more than likely, assuming they don't skip him. And then he'll be ready to go to make his MLB regular season debut end of March against the Miami Marlins in Miami. So I'm really looking forward to that. And Senga, of course, is feeling great today for his native country of Japan, winning the WBC over Team USA. Electric game yesterday. Can't get over that matchup. Shohei Ohtani striking out Mike Trout to end it. I mean, if script writers are a thing in sports, that was a damn good script. I'll say that much. But Ed here with the donation. Thank you so much for that, Ed. I'll answer a couple of your comments, and then we're going to get out of here, guys, because, again, not much more that needs to be harped on in the Mets spring loss 5-2. But again, I appreciate everyone that's been in here. Thank you, guys. It's spring training, so not panic C, but having the worst record in spring should be a bit concerned with our lack of runs. I mean, do the Mets have the worst record in spring? I mean, that's certainly not ideal. But I will say this. I'm not overly concerned by it. I've seen a lot of teams have absolutely putrid springs and go out to dominate and have great seasons. So that's the least of my concerns. You also keep in mind that this is a Mets team that did have a good portion of their team participating in the WBC from a hitter perspective. I would make the argument that even with how the bats have been looking as of late, that if Lindor, Narvaez, Escobar, maybe not Escobar because Beatty really had hit damn well while Escobar was gone. But Alonso, McNeil, if all those guys were with the Mets, obviously there would be more offensive production just naturally by default. So no, I'm not worried in the slightest. I do think this Mets offense is going to be very sharp this year, but I fully expect it to go through those same ebbs and flows we saw last year. I mean, the Mets were a top 5 offensive team last year. People tend to forget that because of how much that they fell flat on their face in the final month of the season, leading into the wild card matchup against the Padres, in which they of course faltered. But offensively, I think the big thing to look at this year is the guys who haven't had an impact and are trying to, and Brett Beatty especially. Brett Beatty is all but guaranteed to be on the roster right now. If he's not, I will be beyond shocked, truly. I'm so confident that he will be on this roster. That's why we're going to probably get into in a separate video soon. That's my intentions, at least. So, yeah, I think Beatty's going to help be an X factor for them. I expect them to probably look to acquire a bat by the trade deadline, should they not necessarily get an overwhelming amount of offensive production to help back Pete. If, say, Beatty doesn't work out, or Vientos, for example, if those internal options don't go as smoothly as they had hoped. If the DH continues to have its struggles, Darren Ruff does not deserve to be on this roster, but yet we still don't know he might be. Mark Vientos leads the Mets in RBIs this spring. I mean, I know that spring training only means so much, but I mean, the guy still has a bad wrist. I don't want Darren Ruff on this roster. I'm sorry. I don't. He hasn't done one thing to make me think otherwise, right? So the Mets are going to use those internal options first and then go from there. So I think we're going to have some great stretches of offense, and we're going to have some very frustrating stretches of offense, just like any other team. But it's what'll be big for them is, are they able to overcome that internally, or will they have to seek external options leading up to the trade deadline, which is very much a possibility, I'd imagine. Also, keep in mind, too, the Mets are actually starting the year with a more structured DH, at least than last year. Daniel Vogelback over Dom Smith, JD Davis got as good as JD has been with San Francisco, and congratulations to him. Wasn't going to be doing that here, so I'm not even going to bother to try to do that comparison, saying that, oh, but JD's doing so well now. No, we can't do that. There's a reason why he didn't work with the Mets for multiple years, right? It was great in his first couple of years, injuries with his hand and everything, then wasn't the same. Same thing can be said with Dom. And I mean, let's not forget the Mets' first 20 games of the year last year had Robinson effing Cano in the lineup. So they're definitely having more structure at the DH position. It's just more so from that right side of the plate is where we have the questions. Will it be the Tommy Phams, and how good's Tommy Pham going to look? Because Tim LeCastro, fourth outfielder wise, I'm taking him every day of the week from an athleticism type. The bat, how does that transition? Of course, during the regular season, probably not as good, I'm sure, but still, I really like LeCastro for a lot of reasons as a fourth outfielder. And then Vientos over Ruff is basically how I'm feeling. So it's going to be interesting to see how this year goes offensively, but we will go through those ebbs and flows of highs and lows together as fans, and we will talk about it when needed. Let me see here, and I'm going to address 2 more comments. I'm going to get out of here, guys. If you're ever bothered by that term, you should be banned from viewing such great content. I appreciate that. Thank you, Ed. And again, appreciate that donation one more time. Could have had Correa, bro. The fact that the Giants, the Mets, both could have had Correa and didn't, after what they were initially guaranteeing contract-wise, I think says it all. I would have loved Carlos Correa, don't get me wrong. And not having him now and seeing Trey Turner with the Phillies, even with Harper out for the first half of the year, it concerns the hell out of me. Don't get me wrong. But we're done with that Correa debate. We've been there, done that. I talked about that man for a month plus straight. We've exacerbated anything and everything on the Carlos Correa front. I was literally in the New York Post for 2 days because of Carlos Correa. And it still led to nothing because that schmuck has to have the most cooked ankle imaginable. The Mets had 8 doctors. And enough of those doctors, the favoritism of those doctors was that, yes, you should not commit to him on a long-term deal at all unless you have really interesting clauses that are, for Correa's sake, not worth his while. So we're done with that front. Let's see. All Even Podcasts with Barry. Thank you so much for the donation. Am I concerned with Alvarez? No, I'm not. Again, Alvarez had surgery on his ankle right as the season ended last year. Wasn't 100% entering spring. So they really had to work him back slowly but surely. So yeah, I'm not concerned with Alvarez one bit. The kid's 21. Let's put this in perspective. Adley Rutschman is now balling out. He very well could be the best catcher in baseball this year, right? After a stellar rookie year last year, when he didn't even start the year with the O's. And Adley's what? 3-4 years older at minimum than Alvarez? No one should be concerned about Alvarez, right? I mean, the fact that the Mets have such an elite talent at such a young age is all you need to know. Even if he doesn't, even in a worse scenario where he doesn't play a game this year, that's the least of my concerns. He'll be 22 then, next year. So, yeah, no, I've got literally no concerns on the Alvarez front, and neither should you. But again, I appreciate that donation. Thank you so much. And with that being said, guys, we're almost a half hour in. I appreciate everyone watching, but we are going to wrap things up now because naturally the average viewer is not going to want to watch much longer than this on a recap video of the Mets losing a spring training game, unless you're an Astros fan, in which we didn't really talk about much on the Astros because it was a minor league roster today. I don't know most of the guys on that Astros team that was playing today besides a select few. led by Brian Abreu, pitching wise, stud reliever. But that was about it. So, guys, I love you all so much. Thank you all so much for your endless support. Make sure to smash that like and subscribe. And as always, let me know your thoughts down below and stay tuned. We should be back live tomorrow. I'm hoping that we are live to discuss a victory or just at least more offense. I mean, give me something more than the pitching to discuss. By God. I mean, that's all I ask. But this is Wardy signing out. Love you guys. Stay tuned. We will be having new Mets podcast. Myself, Anthony Recker, and Joe Sproul out soon enough. We're working on some things right now. We're excited to get that up and rolling for you guys. So once everything is, set in stone, we're ready for our next episode. We'll have it out. Apologies for the delay. We had to skip last week because I was still out in Florida and Port St. Lucie. I was busy at games, covering games and stuff like that. This past week, we just weren't able to line on time, especially because the WBC just concludes. So those games are going on and getting in the way. So rest assured, we will be back soon enough. And once we are, we will be talking shop all things Mets for the podcast. So guys, thank you all so much. And I'll talk to you again real soon. Let's go Mets, baby. Peace out.